Welcome.
I'm Cameron Scott, one of the story architects of Star Wars The High Republic.
This is Dominic Pace, who plays Gekko the Bounty Hunter from The Mandalorian.
Hi, I'm Claudia Gray. I write Star Wars books.
And you're listening.
And you are listening
to Star Wars Comics in Canon. The Force is strong with this one.
Hello there and welcome to Star Wars Comics in Canon, your guide to the wider Star Wars canon through the comic book lens. And to take you on this journey, I'm your host, Mike Burton. And so brings episode 108. So my friends, we're back for another edition of the Crimson Reign crossover event, this time tackling the fourth batch of these comics, which is going to be Bounty Hunters 22, Crimson Reign 4, Darth Vader 22, Star Wars 23, and Dr. Aphra 20. Now, if you haven't joined Star Wars Comics in Canon before, I would recommend go back and listen to prior episodes of Crimson Reign, which were episodes 102, 104, and 106. But as a brief overview, I go through each of these comics, I go through the general plot details, and along the way I give you additional information of connected content, including characters that reoccur, species, planets, that sort of thing. So it really serves as a guide to the comics without you having to pick them up. If you have picked them up, you kind of get a broader view of the canon, as well as a nice refresher. So that all in mind, let's get into things. So, as I said, the reading order started with Bounty Hunters number 22, and so we'll get right into that now. So, Bounty Hunters 22 was written by Ethan Sachs, the artist is Paolo Villanelli, and the colour artist is Arif Prianto. It was released April 6th, 2022, and the trade paperback collection should be released October 25th, 2022. And whenever Paolo comes up, I always like to say I had a conversation with Paolo Villanelli. If you're listening on YouTube, it is in my YouTube channel. It's in the Star Wars Conversations playlist or the Video Conversations playlist. Just type in Paolo Villanelli Genuine Chit-Chat and it should come up on YouTube. Or type in the same thing into any podcast app and it will appear wherever you listen. But with that in mind, let's just delve straight into the comic. So here is the crawl. The bounty hunters have travelled to Corellia to capture Vakura, the leader of the Unbroken Clan. With her help, Taonga believes they can track down and save Cadelia, the young heir to the Unbroken Clan and Mourner's Wail crime syndicates. But Vakura has recently aligned herself with Crimson Dawn, and her organisation has become more powerful and deadly than Taonga imagined. So it starts off with her crew who are surrounded by loads and loads of Mourner's Wail, loyalists or thugs, people who support or are part of the Mourner's Wail. It's been about 2.3 minutes past the cut-off point that 4LOM gave them prior, saying they had about 6 minutes before alarms would sound and people like reinforcements would come up. Obviously it's been past that. 4LOM didn't tell them that, but he's noted for the future if they survive, he will tell them in the future. So he is flying the ship to the rendezvous now, so they need to meet him there on a rooftop. Zuckuss appears in a transport, trying to save Taonga and the rest of them while they're being surrounded by Mourner's Wail, but he immediately bails out of it as soon as he gets there, telling them to leave, and it then explodes, because obviously Zuckuss being a Gand means he has a degree of foresight. An enemy ship starts to come near, and Losha with her sniper rifle manages to take it out, but she is seen, so she needs to move along, because she is still at the rooftops, or was still at the rooftops, providing a degree of backup. While this is all going on, you see Cadelia. She is at quite a fancy table with Kira of Crimson Dawn. She's refusing to eat, and then Kira says, you should eat something, and she grabs a knife and just lunges at Kira. She is stopped by one of the Knights of Ren, who grabs her, and Kira says let her go, she can live, but warns her that it would actually be very beneficial to Kira if Cadelia did die. So she wants Cadelia to be aware of that, and Cadelia, while pouting, sits down and then starts to actually eat her food. Anyway, back to the Bounty Hunters crew. There's loads of amazing action scenes, lots of cool shooting and running and stabbing and things. This is the moment that I always encourage yourselves to go pick up this issue, or when it's available on Marvel Unlimited, which I think it will be over the coming weeks. Go check it out. It's some brilliant artwork by Paolo Villanelli and obviously great colour work by Arif Prianto. But obviously on this show I want to give you the details of the canon and the story and stuff, not just talk about all the action scenes. So if you want that, pick up the comic. There is a fun moment in one of the action scenes, though, that Tasu says that he thinks he's going to die at that point, and he says, I thought my death would be going hand to hand with a Rathtar, and obviously that is exactly how he dies in The Force Awakens. The crew managed to find a transport which is carrying some Nuna. Now, Nuna are featherless chickens of the Star Wars universe. They appear in so many places. You see them in Clone Wars, Rebels. They're almost everywhere, really. You will have seen a Nuna somewhere, but normally when people are eating food in Star Wars and it looks like chicken, it's a Nuna. So they get on this transport and start to evade the Mourner's Wail syndicate, and while that's going on, Losha manages to jump off a roof, shoots a grapple hook which goes through the chest of a thug, manages to grab hold, and she uses that to land on the transport softly. I say softly with a pinch of salt. She lands on it without causing herself a lot of harm or dying. The transport then, having all of them, manages to move a few blocks down the road, but is then hit by a rocket launcher. Fortunately, the gang, although are quite scratched up, all seem to be okay, but obviously the transport is now unusable. They then scramble into an alleyway, hide behind cover. There's more shooting and things like that, but they do eventually manage to get to the rooftop rendezvous. While this is happening, you see what's happening at a Mourner's Wail Syndicate safe house. Someone knocks on the door, an eye slot opens, normally where they say password or see who's there, and a thermal detonator gets dropped into the slot, and then it blows up. Obviously, the door of the place had been blown off by this thermal detonator, so the individual who is there is Dengar, and he just walks straight in. He finds that one person has survived the bomb that he dropped through, and he says for Lord Kamdek to meet him tomorrow or his granddaughter will die, because Dengar's obviously working for Crimson Dawn at the moment, and they've got Cadelia, and obviously Cadelia is the granddaughter of the leader of Mourner's Wail and the leader of the Unbroken Clan Syndicate, but Vakora killed the leader of the Unbroken Clan Syndicate, becoming the leader, so that's obviously the leader of Mourner's Wail. Is the only grandparent left of Cadelia, it seems. Then back to the crew. 4 LOM does pick up the crew. They manage to shoot the rest of the Unbroken Clan that were following them with the ship, and they manage to escape Corellia. And they've got Vakora with them, who is knocked out being carried by Bosk. There's the odd occasion where she does wake up and then immediately gets punched in the face or hit against something and it knocks her back out again. But she wakes up tied to a chair on the ship and tells all of them on board that they are doomed. So that ends Bounty Hunter 22, so let's move on to the next issue, which is Crimson Reign 4, named The Knights. It's written by Charles Soule, the penciler is Steven Cummings, the inker is Victor Olazaba, and the colour artist is Guru EFX. The issue was released April 27th, 2022, and the trade paperback collection was released August 24th, 2022. There's no crawl for Crimson Reign, so let's get straight into the plot. I will just add here that I sound very blocked up. I do apologise for that. I do have a cold, but I feel fine. So if it sounds like I'm pronouncing my B's and things weirdly, that is why. Anyway, back to Crimson Reign. So the issue starts off with a flashback. You've got Kira meeting with the Knights of Ren and talks to their leader, who at the time is called Ren. She offers them freedom from the Sith because she needs Force users to help her with the cause. Because the Knights of Ren, although they're not actively being hunted by the Sith, once the Empire has taken care of Luke Skywalker and the Rebellion and things, they will then start systematically going after the rest of the Force users, and the Knights of Ren will become a target. So the Knights of Ren agree. Now you've got present day, and Kira wants the Knights of Ren to break into Vader's castle on Mustafar to steal a very special key, and she assures them that Vader will be busy elsewhere. So, Vader's castle on Mustafar is called Fortress Vader. You first saw it in live action in Rogue One, which is really, really cool. But you actually get to see it get constructed and things in the final volume of Charles Soule's 2017 run of Darth Vader comics. I have tackled that on episode 74 of Star Wars Comics in Canon, so if you want to hear all about that process and the Mask of Momin and all kinds of other cool stuff, make sure you check that out. But I would say the Darth Vader 2017 comics by Charles Soule are arguably some of the best Star Wars comics that exist, so I hugely recommend people go pick those up. They're all available on Marvel Unlimited, and if not, you can pick up the trade paperback collection. In fact, I think you can pick up the omnibus now of the whole thing. I would hugely recommend people pick that up. So back to the story, the Knights of Ren land on Mustafar. They get on some bikes and head to the fortress. They go to a secret entrance that has been concealed by a lava flow, so the group of them use the Force to move it out of the way and gain access. Now, the Knights of Ren use the dark side of the Force, and they call it the Shadow. They also mention that the dark side of the Force is very strong here, and one of them actually sees the Mask of Momin, and in reaction to seeing it, they shoot it. So the Mask of Momin was in the 2017 Vader comics, as I mentioned prior, but it also appeared in Charles Soule's Lando comic miniseries, which I tackled in episode 18 of Star Wars Comics in Canon, and if you've read or listened to the audiobook of Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher, Lando even mentions the Mask of Momin in that in passing. So if you want to find out about that, go check out episode 18 of Star Wars Comics in Canon or episode 74. It's worth noting here as well, the members of the Knights of Ren, they change over the years and the leader changes. I believe the Knights of Ren have actually been around for decades and decades, if not centuries, but at the moment their entire history is kind of unknown. You do get a decent chunk of it in the Rise of Kylo Ren miniseries by Charles Soule. That was actually tackled on the first episode of Star Wars Comics in Canon. However, back then I did do episodes slightly differently to how I do them now, so I am planning next week to do a redo of the Rise of Kylo Ren to kind of link in with the Knights of Ren being shown in this issue, so you get to hear a bit more information about them and see how they connect to the canon now. But the Knights of Ren, so they've had a variety of different members. So at present, during this Crimson Reign era, the names of the members, excluding the leader called Ren, are Cardo, Mirinda, Vikrol, Basra, Fyodor, and Massif. Now, a couple of them are still around in the sequel trilogy era, and at the start of The Force Awakens, the names of the Knights of Ren are Cardo, once again, Vikrol, once again, and then the newer members are Ushar, Trudgeon, Kuruk, and Aplek. So back to the story, the Knights of Ren then walk through this room that's full of Bacta, and one of them, Fyodor specifically, actually spits into the Bacta, saying, "A little gift from us." Not knowing what the Bacta is specifically for, but obviously we know it is used for Vader when he meditates and has some calm, or when he's injured, and so it's nice to think that a bit of spit from the Knights of Ren has probably gone on Vader's skin. So they then go through and they get into a big open room, which you actually see in Rogue One. It's the one where Orson Krennic meets Vader, and then Vader chokes him and says, "You better not choke on your aspirations." That's the room that they're in, and a character called Vane spots them. So Vane, or Vane, V-A-N-E with an accent, E again. He's first seen in Rogue One. He does go up to Vader when he's in the Bacta tank and tells him that Krennic has arrived, but you actually get to see him a fair amount in the Vader's Castle comics, which I have tackled on this show. I tackled the first batch at Halloween of 2021, and I tackled the second batch only a few weeks ago, so just type in Vader's Castle Comics in Motion into the podcast app, or you can check it out on my Vader playlist on YouTube or anywhere like that. In addition, you can also see Vane in the Lego Terrifying Tales special on Disney+, but obviously take that with a pinch of salt because all Lego stuff is kind of canon adjacent. It's kind of canon-ish in some ways. It's more obviously a bit of fun than anything. But yeah, so Vane spots the Knights of Ren, calls out some troopers, and so the Knights of Ren get surrounded. They then start this battle with these troopers, taking care of them quite easily. Ren's got a lightsaber, the rest of them have got either hand-to-hand weapons or blasters, and it's some very cool action scenes. And while that's all going on, Ren then gets to this door that's locked, cuts through it with the lightsaber, goes into Vader's vault, and then uses the Force to find the key, because the key screams out in the Force, which is quite freaky. The Knights of Ren manage to dispose of many of the troopers, but not all of them, and the rest of the troopers then just leave. Before the Knights can really question what's going on, Vader then enters. He goes up to the Knights of Ren, lifts one of them up, closes his fist, and this Knight of Ren just crumples and crushes. The bones snap, the arms kind of contort horribly, and they fall in a heap on the floor. This very Knight of Ren is Fyodor, the one that spat in the Bacta. Ren then goes forward and confronts Vader while the other Knights escape. Ren and Vader clash lightsabers, and Ren confirms that he got his name and the lightsaber from the one before him, who he bested, so he deserves the saber, because Vader says to him that he doesn't deserve to have that lightsaber. Vader then comments saying, "Oh, so you're the Knights of Ren. It clearly shows how far you have fallen, but you can fall even further." And he lunges and manages to catch Ren during their lightsaber battle and catches Ren in the stomach. Ren is wounded, but he is not killed, and then he jumps backwards out of a window and falls down many, many stories to Mustafar. He uses the Force to cushion his fall and isn't injured, and then he holds up his key triumphantly, kind of mocking Vader. Vader uses the Force to then pull the key back towards him, and then Ren's like, "Oh, no," and uses the Force to try and get the key back, and the rest of the Knights start shooting their blasters, which obviously affect Vader, so he then lets go of the key, and the key returns back to Ren. Ren manages to then grab the key, get on speeders, and they all manage to escape. And then the last panel of this comic is Vader muttering the name Knights of Ren. And the Knights of Ren think they've probably gone further up the list on the priorities of the Empire after that little plan. So that is Crimson Reign number 4. So we move on to the middle comic of this collection, Darth Vader 22. So Darth Vader 22 was written by Greg Pak, the artist is Raffaele Ienco, the colour artist is Alex Sinclair. It was released April 13th, 2022, and the trade paperback collection is due to be out October 18th, 2022. And here is the crawl. Darth Vader has revealed to Ochi of Bestoon and Sabé he has been aware of Ochi's traitorous ways and is using him as a pawn in his battle against Crimson Dawn. Now, he's also using Sabé's status as a member of their ranks to advance his next attack on Crimson Dawn. So, onto the story. Vader flies Sabé and Ochi to Naboo to the site where he killed the Sando Aqua Monster. Now, you first see this in the Darth Vader issues 3 and 4 of this 2020 run. I tackled that in episode 79 of Star Wars Comics in Canon, and you would have seen the Sando Aqua Monster in The Phantom Menace, because when there's that iconic scene with Qui-Gon, Jar Jar and Obi-Wan flying through the planet's core in the little ship after visiting Gungan City, they are being pursued by a sea creature, and then the sea creature gets eaten by a bigger sea creature, to which Qui-Gon says, "There's always a bigger fish." That bigger sea creature, that is a Sando Aqua Monster. So they are colossal. Vader uses the Force to put Sabé and Ochi onto the shore, where they are then attacked by these monsters that haven't been seen elsewhere in canon, and then he asks Sabé why she chose Crimson Dawn. She responds by saying that they are order, and that Palpatine just causes chaos, so she doesn't want him in power. Vader then somewhat questions her wanting to kill him to create order, and notes that if you kill one monster, 1,000 more take its place. So he kills one of the monsters on the shore, and then even bigger monsters come out and cause even more chaos for Ochi and Sabé. Ochi is just being a cowardly yes man at this point, agreeing to anything Vader will say, and Vader's not really taking much note of him, and then Vader uses the Force on some of the smaller monsters, pushes them towards the bigger monsters, and then all the monsters are kind of fighting each other, and Sabé says nothing. Then there's a small time jump, and it shows that there's a Crimson Dawn outpost. An Imperial shutter lands, and out comes Sabé and Darth Vader. Sabé says that Vader now controls this cell of Crimson Dawn. The members of Crimson Dawn who are there say no, open fire on Vader, and he very easily deflects all of their blasters straight back to them, and they all just die. Meanwhile, Ochi of Bestoon goes and tells General Ramodi, who's been the general that's kind of been clashing heads with Vader a little bit over the last few issues, especially when Vader just killed loads of his men, claiming they're part of Crimson Dawn, when in fact they weren't. So Ochi tells Ramodi that Vader has just gone rogue, and he's joined Crimson Dawn. Ochi tells Ramodi that you need to be prepared for this, and also notes that if Ramodi wins this conflict between them, that remember that Ochi helped him out, because Ochi likes to play both sides. While this is all going on, you've got Baylor Valance, the Revengers, so there's 3 hero characters, as well as 2 assassins at this rendezvous point waiting for Ochi to appear. A few TIE fighters fly overhead, shooting at the ground near them, and they all have to take cover. Valance notes that they are Ramodi's TIE fighters and suspects that Ochi must be behind all of this. Then Ochi comms to them and says, actually it's to draw Crimson Dawn out. And then, as he says that, loads of Crimson Dawn fighters then come out of the ground, start firing up at these TIE fighters that are flying overhead. And when I said Crimson Dawn fighters, I mean as in people. And so Crimson Dawn and Ramodi's men then have this big shootout. Ramodi is on his ship and is confused by what's going on. Vader then comms to him and says that this was all a plan and he wanted to use it so that Crimson Dawn would show their true strength on the planet that they're currently on. Crimson Dawn then let off something called a pulse bomb, and it leaves that all the Crimson Dawn, as well as all of the Stormtroopers and Imperials there, are all dead. The crew who are nearby, as in Valance, the Revengers, the Assassins, and Ochi, they're all fine. And Vader wanted to make sure that the crew all feared him. And then he asks Sabé, is she finally scared of him? And she says no, she isn't, because she wouldn't be scared of Anakin Skywalker. And that is where Darth Vader 22 ends. So with that, we move to the penultimate issue, Star Wars 23. It's written by Charles Soule, the artist is Ramon Rosanas, and the colour artist is Rachelle Rosenberg. It was released May the 4th, 2022, and the trade paperback collection was out September 13th, 2022. And here is the crawl. Kez Dameron has defied orders and led a team of rebels to rescue his wife, Shara Bey, from the clutches of the ruthless Commander Zahra. With the entire rebel fleet arriving at the doorstep of Zahra's Star Destroyer, the rebels believe they've got the upper hand. However, Commander Zahra has her own plans in motion. So, as the crawl said, the entire rebel fleet is now in front of Zahra's one Star Destroyer, but she has got a plan. And the way this comic kind of goes is you've got Zahra telling her plan, and then you actually get to see exactly how the plan unfolded. Basically, everything she says goes to plan to a point, and so we're just going to go into that. So she predicts the rebels' every single move. She aims Tarkin's Will, the Star Destroyer, at the rebel encampment on the planet they're nearby. That's the final rebel division that has not been connected to the rest of the rebellion. So the rebels think that that's going to be the Star Destroyer's target. So the rebel ships then pursue the Star Destroyer, and then the Star Destroyer keeps on going towards the planet, and then once the rebel ships are caught in the planet's gravitational pull, the Tarkin's Will Star Destroyer then fires ion cannons at the rebel ships. That means it then disables their thrusters, and they are then stuck in the gravitational pull of the planet and are pulled towards the planet, and the ships will not recover from the ion cannons in time to be able to turn their thrusters on and survive. So this means that the rebels must choose. They either leave the ships to fall and destroy the camp, or they shoot their own ships to try and make the people on the encampment have a better rate of survival. It's an impossible choice, and Zahra knows it. Zahra intends on recording this and then showing that the rebels not only fail, but also shoot their own people, and she comments on that, but it doesn't really seem to be mentioned again. While this is happening, the Pathfinders are on the detention level, so that is Kez and his group of individuals gone to try and save Shara Bay because they managed to get on the ship before this whole skirmish all occurred. Kez decides to go find Shara Bay while the others wait after they took care of the few Imperials that were on the detention level. Back to the firefight going on, the Tarkin's Will notes that the rebels are shooting their own ships to try and help the encampment. So, as the Star Destroyer gets closer and closer to the encampment, Zahra commands that the thrusters get turned on at the last possible second. So as that occurs, the Star Destroyer falls towards the camp, and as the thrusters engage, they shoot out so much heat it just sets all the camp on fire and destroys the vast majority of it. Back on the ship itself, Kez finds Shara Bay. They have a very nice reuniting moment, and then they return to the rest of the group. And they decide that they need to blow up a certain spot on the ship because they check through some of the readouts on the Star Destroyer and note that the rebels seem to actually be losing even though there is one ship. So they choose a spot to blow up. It seems to be a reactor or something important like that, but it will disable the ship entirely. So Shara and Kez split from the rest of the group. Shara and Kez go to find transport to escape, while the rest of them are intending on blowing up the ship, leaving a timer, and leaving with Shara and Kez. So there's a few action scenes, a bit of shooting and things like that, but the rebels do eventually get to the reactor, and they put all the detonations down, and they decide they're not going to leave a timer just in case because this is too important. So they detonate it, blowing themselves up, the three of them, and I believe it's Frel and Azrael are two of the members. So from this detonation, the Tarkin's Will Star Destroyer has a massive explosion on it and then falls towards the planet. You see these very, very cool panels of the Star Destroyer falling. Just before that happened, Zahra said to abandon ship as soon as the explosion went off, telling all of her crewmates and things to leave. And so the Tarkin's Will crashes onto this planet, and then it goes back to Kez and Shara. They have returned to the ship, the Home One, the Mon Calamari cruiser that's like the main flagship of the Rebel fleet, and it shows that obviously the others did not join them. Leia notes that she needs to talk to Kez about their chain of command because obviously he completely disobeyed her orders, but then Zahra comes to the ship confirming that she's still alive and tells Leia to come and get her, and the final panel shows that Zahra is standing further away from the Star Destroyer wreckage, seemingly alone, but fairly unscathed. So that's where Star Wars 23 ends, so we move on to the final issue of Crimson Reign number 4, and that is Dr. Aphra 20. Dr. Aphra 20 is written by Alyssa Wong, the artist is Minkyu Jung, the colour artist is Rachelle Rosenberg, it was released May 18th, 2022, the trade paperback collection is due out October 25th, 2022, and the hardcover omnibus of every Dr. Aphra in the second run from 2020 is due to be released May 2nd, 2023, so it's quite a while away. And with that in mind, let's get on to the final crawl. The race is on for Ascendant Tech. Rogue archaeologist Dr. Aphra and smuggler Sana Starros have been tasked with collecting ancient Ascendant tech by Domina Take. As Kofon Faris makes their way to Barleth University in search of the fabled Ascendant tech called the Spark Eternal, their school chum Aphra and Starros find themselves on the same path. Now it seems there's more to their old professor and university than meets the eye, as she holds the secret to the coveted spark. So the issue starts off with a flashback. It's got Ko and Aphra in Sabé Ochi Noz's first lecture. She asks the students to translate one of the Ascendant's mantra, not literally, but they need to get the intent and the poeticism by looking at the culture of the Ascendant, what time of the galaxy it was, and all those sorts of elements to combine to make a good translation. Aphra wants Ko to help get involved in some other nefarious scheme, but gets interrupted by the Sava kind of talking over them, and then you don't really get to find out what that is quite yet. Then it cuts to present day. Kofon Faris is with Sabé Ochi, and they're going through the mantra once again, kind of ticking off things that need to be done when they're on this plinth of the Spark Eternal. Where they are seems to be the heart, which is something that the Ascendant mantra has mentioned a few times and is essential to get the Spark Eternal. Ko asks Eglantine, or I'm just going to say Sava from now on because it's easier, asks the Sava how long she's known about the spark, all these ruins that are below the university, and all the other information. So the Sava confirms that she excavated the caverns for decades, but she often comes down to meditate, because the Sava said that she can't do the ritual alone. The Sava then sees Aphra and points a blaster at her, and then Aphra decides to antagonize the Sava. The Sava then shoots, and Sana then shoots back, but then the bolts are ricocheting off the inside of the cavern. Kofon Faris uses her magnet technology glove things to pull Sana's blaster out of her hands. Aphra then goes to stick one of the magnets on the wall, stolen from Ko using the Ascendant tech, and Ko manages to use her magnet glove things to pull Aphra to the centre of the room just before Aphra manages to stick the magnet down and activate it. So Aphra is then right up close to Ko, pulls out a blaster and tries shooting at them, but Aphra misses. Aphra and Ko then tussle. Ko headbutts Aphra, whose then nose bleeds a little bit and a drop falls onto the centre of the sanctum thing. Then Aphra hits Ko in the face, and Ko, once again, bleeds a little bit and a bit of blood falls into the sanctum. And then Ko calls Aphra a bad friend and a bad enemy, and pulls out the Thought Dowser. Sana then uses some more magnets, and then Ko is pulled away and gets stuck to this rock thing by where Sana is down in the bottom, and now it's just Aphra and the Sava Eglantine at the top on this plinth at the centre of this Spark Eternal heart that the Ascendant go on about. So the Sava then cuts her arms and bleeds into the centre of the sanctum, and that shows that 3 people have bled into it, and then the centre lights up. Aphra threatens the Sava with the Thought Dowser and then grabs the glowing centre for herself. The glowing red light from the middle of this plinth shoots Aphra through her chest, leaving a massive hole. She falls dead onto the centre of this plinth, and then Sana Staros runs up the stairs and goes towards her. While this happens, Save Eglantine Nos then recalls the mantra and says that things are about to get very interesting. Then the central plinth grows this almost tree branch things, tentacles kind of things. That grabs Aphra, wraps all around her and lifts her up. Her wounds start to heal and Sana takes a few steps back, saying, "You're not Aphra." And then the final panels show that Aphra's chest is glowing red, her eyes are glowing red as well. She's standing there with her arms outstretched and comments, "No, I am eternity." And that is where the issue ends. So that, my friends, is the end of Crimson Reign number 4. I hope you've enjoyed it. Obviously, we've still got one more batch of Crimson Reign comics to do in this crossover, which I will be tackling in a couple weeks' time. And then after that, I'll do the few in-between issues, and then very soon we're going to be delving into the Hidden Empire crossover, which is the last big crossover event of these 2020 comics, obviously starting with War of the Bounty Hunters, then Crimson Reign, and then finishing off with Hidden Empire. It's kind of the Kira legacy trilogy. Obviously, Kira from Solo: A Star Wars Story plays a big role in this whole mini-series crossover event things. But what else have we got coming up? Well, as I said slightly earlier, next week I'm planning on doing the Rise of Kylo Ren comics by Charles Soule. I tackled them in the first episode of Star Wars Comics in Canon. I hadn't fully found my footing in a way. I didn't know exactly how I wanted the show to go, and because those comics at the time were quite new, I didn't want to spoil things. This time, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to spoil all of them, and I'm going to go into a lot of detail in a lot of the elements of it, so it's going to be a redo or an extended version of it, however you want to kind of think about it, but it's just a way to kind of update one of my older episodes. Especially given the Knights of Ren are in Crimson Reign at the moment, and they seem to be having quite a lot to do, and I've read some of the issues after this, and I suspect there's going to be a lot more to them, especially because Ren, the leader, is in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic, which is set decades after these events, so I assume we're going to get a bit more of what the Knights of Ren are all about as we go. I even suspect they're probably going to be like the High Republic and things like that, because Charles Soule is very good at connecting things, so I think this is probably the perfect time to go back into that and give a lot more depth to these characters. Then the week after that, I'm probably then going to do Crimson Reign 5, get that done and dusted, and then I've had notification that I'm getting the 5th issue of the Obi-Wan Kenobi miniseries, so I imagine the week after Crimson Reign number 5, I'll be tackling the Obi-Wan Kenobi miniseries. Then after that, I've got the Ghosts of Vader's Castle IDW comics to do as well. I've got the IDW Publishing Clone Wars Battle Tales comics to do, and then we've also got the Midnight Horizon book review, which I don't know when that's going to be done. I'm about halfway through the book now, so getting there steadily. And also we've got the new wave of the High Republic stuff coming out very soon. I imagine I'll tackle the one-shot Quest of the Jedi, but I think that's not till like November time. But that's a general overview of the coming weeks for this show. I also want to mention that I'm going to be doing the Andor series, so we're going to be doing a weekly discussion show. I will release it on my YouTube channel, but also on the feed of Comics in Motion, as I usually do. However, I believe that next week is actually the first batch of episodes, so although I said that next week is going to be the Rise of Kylo Ren comics, I think I'm going to release the Andor discussion episode instead of that episode next week, just because it's a lot of work trying to watch 3 episodes of Andor and do a whole discussion episode on it, while also doing Star Wars Comics in Canon, and also doing genuine chit-chat, while also doing everything else in my life. So I think the next week will just be the discussion Andor show. The week after that, I'll either do Crimson Reign or the Rise of Kylo Ren. Then the week after that, I'll obviously do whichever the other one is. Then after that, I'll do the Obi-Wan series and kind of go from there. But that's what you can expect. Obviously, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. All these Star Wars episodes are in their own playlists, so you can listen to all the War of the Bounty Hunters and Crimson Reign issues. You can listen to everything I've done on the High Republic, or just every Vader episode, every Aphra episode, whatever you want to listen to. It's all organised very nicely, and also all of my genuine chit-chat episodes are on there as well, including many video conversations, including the conversation with Cavan Scott of the High Republic. There's a video to that, video with my conversation with Paolo Villanelli, as well as Alex and Molly Damon of Star Wars Explained. But there's also the audio-only version of my conversation with Claudia Gray, which was before the High Republic all started kicking off and things, but she did talk about it a little bit. Things like that. I've spoken to people involved with Star Wars. There's loads of Star Wars Comics in Canon episodes, and there's also tons of conversations that have got absolutely nothing to do with Star Wars at all. Just subscribe on YouTube, go to youtube.com/genuinechitchat to find out all of that information and more. Aside from that, my friends, please remember to rate a review on any podcast app. You can do it on Spotify, Apple Pods, as well as Good Pods, places like that. Share on social media, tell your friends all about this show and the other amazing shows on Comics in Motion and the other amazing episodes on my Genuine Chit-Chat YouTube channel. And it just means a lot to both myself, all of the members of the Comics in Motion family, and also, as I said, to me. It means a lot to me, so please try and do that where you can. If you want to support the show beyond just sharing with your friends and listening, please consider going to patreon.com/genuinechitchat for tons of exclusive content you won't get anywhere else, including Star Wars Legends book reviews. I've just finished Darth Bane book 3, so that's the full Darth Bane trilogy, and I've released the reviews for Darth Bane number 1. Darth Bane number 2 is going to be released very soon, and then I'm going to record the third one very soon as well, so the whole Darth Bane trilogy will be on there. Currently on there is also the Darth Plagueis book, the Shatterpoint novel, as well as a couple of canon novels I've not released on this feed, including A New Dawn, which is the Rebels prequel book, and Dark Disciple, which is the Clone Wars era novel, which is used from unfinished episodes of Clone Wars and has the next chapter of Quinlan Vos and Asajj Ventress's story. So lots of cool things there. If you want some additional content that's nothing to do with Star Wars, myself and Megan record loads of episodes of Afterthoughts with our thoughts on the stuff, including live performances, TV shows we've seen, holidays we've been on, that sort of stuff. You can subscribe for as little as £1 a month. You get access to another link, and you put that in the podcast player of your choice, and you get access to the Patreon exclusive feed, where there are hours and hours of additional content. At the moment, there's over 100 episodes of Afterthoughts, so please consider checking that out. But that is going to be it from me, my friends. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you listening, especially all the way up to the end. I'll talk to you next Saturday with the Andor discussion show, the first episode of that with a good friend Jack, who is a member of the Comics in Motion family and one of the Pop Gorillas. And then after that, we'll go back to the usual programming, as well as the weekly discussion shows that we're going to be having. But thank you so much as always, my friends. I'll talk to you then. And as always, may the Force be with you. The intro for Star Wars Comics in Canon is arranged by myself, Mike Burton, and the backing music was made by Eric Matias of soundimage.org.
You have just experienced host, creator, everything elser of Genuine Chit-Chat, and also the host and creator of Star Wars Comics in Canon, found on the Comics in Motion podcast, Mike Burton.